What's up, guys? Welcome to another writing live stream. If you're new here, my name is Drucifer, and we are doing a writing live stream here on YouTube. We are writing my horror anthology called Hell's Night, and every Friday night we write and we talk as a community, and then we come up with ideas for the script, and I write in real time and more or less that is how the run of the show goes. If you're out there watching, I appreciate it. And if you're new, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the script, what's going on with it, and then we're going to hop right in and do some writing because we're getting very close to uh getting to a stopping point for this story and starting another story. Um at least with the first draft. Let me gather a few things here before we start writing. So, let's get some music going. Like I said, I don't know how crazy I am about this music that comes with this software, but it's better than nothing. So, that will be the next thing I work on with the live stream is finding a little bit better music. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the script thus far. So, I think this is the fourth live stream that we have done on this story. And the fun part about it is that you guys have seen it sort of change, throughout, you know, these four live streams. And you've seen, the different ideas we've had. And that is generally how writing goes, right? Like you'll have an idea and you make a lot of revisions to the script, not just during different drafts, but as you're writing. And if I was writing this, not on the live stream, I probably would have already finished. But I'm making sure that I'm continuing to go through live stream and work on it every Friday. And I think we had one extra day this past week where, we did a writing live stream. So if you weren't here that day, you'll definitely see some changes, but we'll catch you up. Uh, so the story is about a couple. The couple gets lost out in the rain and they are trying to figure out where they are because they're lost. They don't know how to get home. They don't know how to get anywhere. Their phones aren't working and they're sort of taking shelter under like an awning. And uh unbeknownst to them, they are actually dead. You find that out in the story later on. But as they're trying to figure out where they are in the city, they see a glimmer of light at the end of the street and they start heading towards that light. Now, that light is going to be an antique shop. That antique shop, they go in, they eventually meet a man that goes by the name Haran. And if you're familiar with Greek mythology, Haran is the ferryman of the dead. So Haran is the guy that is tasked with taking the living to the underworld, and he does that, via boat, like a gondola, and you have to pay Haran with some gold coins that your family buried you with. And if you don't have those gold coins, you are left to wander the riverbanks for 100 years. Um, so we're playing a little bit on Greek mythology in the story. We're playing a little bit on a twist of not knowing the couple not knowing that they're dead. But they soon find out towards the end of the story. So if you're somebody that watches anthologies or if you're familiar with anthologies, then you normally always have a main story or an intro story. I've been calling it like a wraparound story, right? So Tales from the Crypt, you have the Crypt Keeper that introduces every story. Body Bags, John Carpenter, you have John Carpenter as a medical examiner, um, introducing the stories. Alfred Hitchcock Presents, you have Alfred Hitchcock presenting the stories. Now, some anthologies have their own storyline, and ours for Hell's Night is going to have its own storyline. So, our film actually um, is going to tell a story, and it's going to introduce three other short films. Now, the way we're going to do this is, like I mentioned, the couple goes to this antique shop. As they're in the antique shop looking around, trying to take shelter from the rain and the cold, they're sort of looking around and they're picking up items. They eventually meet Haran, and Haran starts telling them these stories. And these stories that he starts telling them are the other films. So, um, again, if you're new here, or a new watcher, or watching this on the replay, either way, and you're trying to catch up with what I'm doing, then you will be, hard pressed to sort of figure out like, what stories are we going to tell. So the other three films are not written yet. The other three films, we're going to write in live streams as well. Now, I do have a idea of potentially, letting some other filmmakers add some stories in. If I can find some people that have some killer stories, finding some other people and letting them, film their film, or if they already have something awesome, incorporating it into Hell's Night. So if I was to do that, I would find two other filmmakers or two other films to put in this, and I would, write one and then shoot one myself. And if not, then I'm just gonna write all 3, shoot all 3, and, just move on with it. So, either way, I'm happy. Just trying to find those other filmmakers is going to be the fun part of it. So, we'll see what happens with that. Alright, so one thing I wanna check here is I feel like I am going to dim down this lighting just a tad bit. So give me just a minute. I'll be right back. All right, so that's a little bit better. It was a little too bright for me. I just adjusted the ISO on my camera. Okay, so here we are in our story. Let's go ahead and let's dive into it. I've got some coffee. I hope you guys have some snacks, have some drink as well, because we are going to start writing here in just one second. So tonight, I'm also streaming on Kick. New to Kick, don't know much about it, but if there's anybody out there in Kickland or Twitchland, say hey, because I am new at either place. Um, Also streaming on Twitter and YouTube. So if you like what you see here, come over to YouTube and subscribe and hang out. Check out some of the other videos, because eventually, when we get to principal photography of these films, a lot of that stuff will be here on the YouTube channel. So, um, this back here, if you guys saw the thumbnail of the video, let me bring this up here. So this is one of our main characters. This is Sarah. This is a shot of her in the antique shop. So while we're writing this, this is what I want you guys to envision. This is how this antique shop looks. So you guys are familiar with the exterior of the antique shop. We talked a little bit about that last week. and this is what the interior is going to look like. And the main character, uh, one of the main characters, the other main character is David. This is him here, and they're a couple, like I said, and then they will eventually run into our protagonist, or uh, Haran. We'll say he's a protagonist. So this is him here. So as we write this, this is the antique shop owner. I want you guys to really be able to visualize these characters. This antique shop is dirty, it's dusty, it's dark. It has a lot of old stuff that has been being collected for hundreds and hundreds of years. Um, so that's where you'll see like all of this craziness in here. All right, so let's go ahead and let's get into it. All right, so here is our script. We are, I believe, let me see, 8 pages in. So again, if you're new, this is the intro story to um our our anthology here. So there's a couple things that I want to go back and I want to change. Um, and that is where we wrote last week about David breaking the window. Because when you write something like this, right, you got to think, since I am not only writing it, I'm going to be the cinematographer, right, the cam op, and I'll probably be directing it, just depending on the crew I have. Then I'm thinking of things, okay, well, I'm not only writing within my eventual budget, but I'm writing within my capabilities. And I want to make sure that I'm writing with not only potential locations in mind, but I'm writing with like things that I know that I'm going to be able to do. So, right here, this section where David clenches the rock in his fist, pulling his arm back, he punches through the window above the door lock. So, these guys, they make it to this antique shop. The lights are on, but the door is locked. And they're really trying to get in there because there's this hellish, massive storm happening. And they need to get in there, because Sarah's freezing. Sarah is, giving David this sob story. She just wants to go home. So they get there. There's a close sign on there. So David breaks into it. So I'm thinking that I want to change this. Um, and maybe it's stranger if the door is unlocked. Like in the middle of the night, the door is just unlocked. Because if the door was locked and Haran is waiting for them to show up, um, then it doesn't. It sort of takes that weirdness away. Sort of, it's like, okay, well, if he's waiting on him, but the door is locked, then you know why is it locked? So what I want to do is I sort of probably want to omit this. So we would have to go up here. David walks the edge of the street in front of the shop. Let me see. So Sarah, he says it's locked. Sarah's already realized why the door won't budge, and with one hand covering her face in defeat, she points with the other at a sign that hangs on the window. The sign reads closed. David walks off the stoop and back into the rain. We will see about that. Sarah, where are you going? David walks the edge of the street in front of the shop. David, hang on. David finds a rock in the gutter of the street in front of the antique shop. He picks it up and storms back to the door. Sarah already knows what his plan is and tries to get in front of him to stop it. David, don't. David brushes by Sarah in frustration. He has had enough. We are not staying in the storm any longer. David clenches the rock in his fist, pulling his arm back. He punches through the window above the door lock. David reaches through the broken glass and unlocks the door. He looks back at Sarah, who is visibly shaking. All right, so I don't know. I like it, but we'll see how it pans out in the next draft. Now, I don't really see that being a thing when we go to film it. You can do a lot of things in post with special effects, and you can replace glass if you have a little bit bigger budget, but I don't really see me replacing glass, um, or doing anything like that. I mean, I guess I could fake it in a way. I'm more concerned about the story, like, why would Haran have the door locked if, he was waiting on them to show up, you know? So, we'll keep it for now. Alright, so interior, Haran's Antiques night. Alright, so the last action we had was Sarah reaches for David's hand and they both take a step into the antique shop. So, let's see here. Some music that is not playing. Alright, the couple slowly walks in. Uh, Alright, so couple slowly walk in, looking around at the interior of the shop. It's dimly lit, covered in dust, and overcrowded with things from the floor to the ceiling. That's not the word I want. So you guys remember the picture I showed you? It sort of is overcrowded, from the floor to the ceiling. Let me see here. Overcrowded with things. Cobwebs and decades-old dust hang from the light fixtures and framed portraits on the walls. Actually, make this a separate line of action. Let me see. I don't know. Some of this stuff looks really old. I think some of this stuff looks really old. I don't know what's up with this thing. Sometimes it just seems like mind of its own. All right, probably nearly a century. All right, so here we go. So, interior Haran's Antiques night. The couple slowly walk in, looking around at the interior of the shop. It's dimly lit, covered in dust, and overcrowded with things from the floor to the ceiling. Cobwebs and decades old dust hang from the light fixtures and framed portraits on the walls. The floors squeak and groan with every step they take. Sarah, how long do you think this place has been here? David continues to look around in disbelief. I don't know. Some of this stuff looks really old, probably nearly a century. Sarah, I don't ever remember seeing this place here before. David, I don't even know where we are or what part of town this is. Hang on, maybe not. I don't even know where we are. I can't remember where we are. Never seen this place here before. Let's see. All right. So they let go of each other's hands and begin to explore the front room of the shop. Looking closer, items stacked on top of one another. Sarah and David let go of each other's hands and begin to explore the front room of the shop, looking closer at the items stacked on top of one another. remember the inside of the shop, it's just, it's not nicely displayed things, right? Like an antique shop, like you would think. It is literally just stuff that is shoved to the sides and just stacked. Um, Let me bring up that picture one more time of Sarah walking through here. So if you look on the left side of this picture here, then you can see, like just the dust in the dirt that has accumulated over time, right? Like right there on that cabinet. And then if you look past it, that like curio cabinet with the glass front on the left side, you can just see the layer of just nastiness on it, right? So really there's a lot to look at. And like I said before, there's a lot of thrift stores like this that I go into. This isn't unrealistic in a way. Like some places, they just have so much stuff and they don't care about how they display it. They don't care about what it is. They just take everything they can get. So, looking through it, right, there's just so much for them to look at, and they're just slowly walking around, just amazed and, in awe of all the stuff that's there. So, uh, we'll go back to the script now. So that's what I want you guys to envision um as we're writing through this. So when the cobwebs and decades old dust hang from the light fixtures and the frame portraits on the walls, that's what I want you guys to envision. Like envision, like just those old Civil War and those just really old creepy portraits that you see sometimes just on the wall as they're walking through, and just cobwebs and dust hanging off of those. So the floor squeak and groan with every step they take. David continues to look around in disbelief. Sarah and David let go of each other's hands and begin to explore the front room of the shop independently, looking closer at the items stacked on top of one another. David, naturally curious, picks up a globe. Nope, not a globe. He picks up a old clock and examines it. Examines it closely. Time reads 6. David looks at the back of the clock. David looks at the back of the clock and tries to wind it. And I cannot type wind it, but it's a stupid mechanical keyboard. Tries to wind it, but with no luck. Alright, so it dawns on him that he has no clue what time it is. It's always a worrisome thing. Like if you don't know what time it is, if you don't have a phone to check. Um Alright, so It's the bottles. Sarah staring deep. Curio cabinet filled with bottles of um let's see here. He picks up an old clock and examines it closely. The time reads 6 p.m. David looks at the back of the clock and tries to wind it, but with no luck. What's the other word? Not tinctures, but there's another word. Another word I'm trying to think of. Tonics or salves? What's a salve? Salve like a wax, soy wax, full of tinctures and tonics. Okay, she says, I have no idea. I have no idea. This night has seemed like it has gone on forever. Let's see. I want one more time for David to try to check his phone, so not what I want to say. Still no luck with my phone. I'm trying to think what I want her to pick up. Some of the things that they pick up will probably be things from the other stories. So I'm trying to think. Night is seen like it has gone on forever. David reaches into his pocket. Reaches into his pocket to try and check his phone. Into his pocket. No luck with my phone. Surely is there is one here we can use. Okay, so let's take that line away. Still no luck with my phone. So I want him to say there got to be somewhere. All right, so do you guys know what a death mask is? Anybody out there on the stream? Anybody out there listening know what a death mask is? All right, well, I'm gonna tell you what a death mask is. So, death mask is a likeness, typically in wax or plaster cast, of a person's face after their death, usually made by taking a cast or impression of the corpse. Death masks may be mementos of the dead or used for creation of portraits. So these things, let me see, when were these used? Commonly in the late 18th century to record variations in human physio physiognomy. Oh my gosh, I can't say this word. Physiognomy. And it's the practice of assessing a person's character or personality from their outer appearance, especially the face. So death mask. Let me show you guys what one of these looks like real quick, cause they're kind of weird. All right, let's see if I can find. Wow, apparently you can buy them on eBay, like authentic ones. Let's see here. All right, I'm gonna share this with you guys real quick so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, so check this out. So death mask. Right there, you see the death mask man, face male, morbid, oddity, gothic for $139 on eBay. Um, those are death masks. Kind of weird, right? Um, but that's what it looks like. They're like plaster casts of somebody's face, like this one right here. 1900s French life-size death mask of a man, $399. Pretty cool. Be honest with you, I'm surprised I don't have one of these. That one's made out of wood. It's humongous. Okay, so there's all kinds of stuff on it. So, death masks. So, that is probably what I want her to pick up as she's looking at things because let's say that we need to go back and we need to have a callback to this story, then maybe one of the other stories can have something surrounding a death mask. We could even honestly write a story called The Death Mask, right? Like just as a last idea. Now, granted, I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to, you know, uh write some original content, not trying to force things, but I'm just saying if it's there, it's there. So, let's hop back into the script here. All right, so all right, an old death mask. That's what we want to put here. Well, if I put it in the right spot. Old death mask from a nearby desk. This is where we can have David talk a little bit about it. So, David says essentially like Sarah picks up an old desk mask from a nearby desk and she says, "Yeah, somewhere." As she's looking around, because she's looking at all the junk, saying there's got to be a phone here somewhere, you know? So, oh man. All right, so this is where he's going to explain to her what a death mask is. So, Um, Give me 1 second. All right, so he tells her no, it's a death mask, and she says, All right, so one thing that I think I forgot to put in this story so far, that as I'm writing, because so here's the problem. Here's the problem is I can go on and on and on and on with this story because these characters are kind of fun. I really need to start wrapping it up and bring Haran out, because we are 10 pages in, and I'll reiterate it. I talk about it every time we stream. That good rule of thumb, just depending on how much action you have, that 1 page on your script is equivalent to 1 minute of screen time, right? So I don't want to have too many minutes of screen time before we get into the main story, because I don't want to lose people, or I don't want them to get too involved into this story and then not be okay when we start telling another story. So um I really need to look up, or not look up, I really need to wrap up this section in the next 2 pages. So really no more than 12 minutes in. I really need to honestly keep it between 5 and 10 minutes, this part of the story. So um, there could be some sections in here that I'm able to shoot faster when we do shoot it. It just depends on, you know, how that goes when we shoot it. So uh, one thing I forgot to put up here is I think when they come in to the antique shop to begin with, I want Sarah to say hello, like, "Hey, is anybody in here? We're just here. We're looking for a phone," right? Because um, I need to make sure that they're announcing why they're in there again, not just for the viewer, but for, reality's sake, right? Like if you walked in somewhere and you were looking for a phone, or you walked in somewhere, right, that you're not supposed to be, especially after breaking in there, you want to make sure that you're like announcing yourself. So, like if somebody is in there, or if you are trespassing, you're not, I don't know, hopefully going to get shot, or whatever the case may be. So, um, I want to make sure that they're announcing that and saying, "Hey, like, anybody here? We're here to use the phone." So let's go back up here. I'm on page. What page is this? Page 8. All right, so Interior Haran's Antiques night. The couple slowly walk in, looking around at the interior of the shop. It's dimly lit, covered in dust, and overcrowded with things from the floor to the ceiling. Let me bring this up. Hang on. Let me bring this up here while I read this. All right. So, interior Haran's Antiques night. The couple slowly walk in, looking around at the interior of the shop. It's dimly lit, covered in dust, and overcrowded with things from the floor to the ceiling. Cobwebs and decades-old dust hang from the light fixtures and frame portraits on the walls. The floors squeak and groan with every step they take. Sarah, how long do you think this place has been here? David continues to look around in disbelief. I don't know. Some of the stuff looks really old, probably nearly a century. Sarah, I don't even remember seeing this place here before. David, me neither. But I can't remember what part of town we're in. I don't like that dialogue from David there. So sometimes reading this stuff back, I don't want to make the audience, I don't want to give them. One thing about writing is you want to make sure that you're not making your audience out to be idiots, right? So like you don't want to give too much information, or you don't want the dialogue to tell too much where it's like you're reinstating information that they're able to infer from watching the film, right? Or you don't want to reinstate dialogue that you sort of had earlier in the script, but in a different way, right? So again, we'll save that for second draft stuff because we're going to touch this up. Again, this is the first draft. So let's see. But I do want to make sure that. So let me see here. Apprehensive. The word I'm looking for, apprehensive. Anybody out there want to put in the chat the definition of apprehensive? Anxious or fearful that something bad or unpleasant will happen. That is exactly the word I was looking for. Sarah is apprehensive and on guard. So I want to put parentheses to anyone. All right, I got a question for you guys. Anybody out there watching? So let's say that you're these characters, right? Let's say you're Sarah or David, and you had this night that they had, right? You're lost. You don't know where you are. You're in this storm. You see this antique shop, right? And you break into it, right? You break into it to get out of the storm, to try to use a phone. That way you can try to figure out where you are or how you're going to get home. Now, you're Sarah. or David and you're walking in and you're calling out saying, "Hello, is anyone there?" and you don't get a response. Now, are you more frightened or are you more relieved that you didn't get a response from inside this creepy antique shop that you just broke into to get out of the storm to try to find a phone? Are you guys more fearful and frightened, or are you more relieved? Let me know. Put it over here in the chat because I'm interested to see where your thoughts would be. I will give you guys my answer here about that question. I think I would be more fearful if I didn't get a reply because if all the lights are on and I don't know, I guess sometimes businesses keep their lights on at night, but I just feel like if somebody yelled back at me like, "Hey, get the hell out of here," I would leave. Or if somebody said, "Hey, you can come back here, use the phone 1 minute, whatever." But when somebody doesn't respond, it um, leaves you in that sense of unknown, right? Because you don't know still, like, okay, well, somebody lurking around the corner, are they going to uh, blow my brains out? Are they going to, you know, hurt me? Like, what are they doing? Why are they silent if they're here? Have they called the police? Is there something evil lurking around the corner? Who knows? So I think it's more fearful without getting a reply. All right, so he says, "Hello, anyone here?" Sarah can't decide if she's relieved or more frightened that there is no response. She looks at David for reassurance. Um, he says, he says, "Oh man, let me freaking type it right." All right, so he says we were stuck out in the storm and dot 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 dot, and we sort of got lost. We don't know where we are. David looks back at Sarah and whispers, need a parenthetical here. I want her to whisper back. So that's a good point. Uh, that is a good point. So I'm gonna ponder that. So David looks back at Sarah and whispers. I don't think anyone is here. So what if... Why would they be hiding? Yeah, you're not wrong. So keeping the attention span is going is always going to be, um, it's always going to be the toss up, right? So how quick do you cut? How quick do you bring in action? So um, it's definitely something to ponder. Now, the biggest thing, my biggest concern with having somebody answer back is, who would I have answer back, right? So obviously Haran is the main guy. Um, he's the shopkeep, he's the owner, but the fact of the matter is I need to bring him in a special way. Like, um, and that's gonna be a whole nother thing I gotta figure out, like, how am I gonna bring him in, right? Because he is this larger than life character. Like, I don't want him to just have like a them break the window, them come in, and then like, him come out of the back with a book. Um and I don't know if I want to be as cliche in horror tropey as, him having a jump scare to come in. So I just got to figure out honestly how we're going to bring this character in, because Haran um is based on the Greek mythological figure Haran, right? The ferryman of the dead. So this guy obviously doesn't really have. I mean, he is that character, but, I'm not gonna have him come in like, is it Hades? Hades from, the Disney Hercules movie, right? Like, I'm not gonna have him come in and be all crazy in that regard. I just gotta figure out how can we introduce him, right? Uh, so maybe having him answer back is the key, something to ponder on, and that'll be something for me to ponder on over the coming week. And we'll circle back around. Um, because you're right when you talk about attention span. I don't want people to get too caught up. But with that, there's also the slow buildup of suspense. So if you can deliver it right, like the suspense is gonna be there. I just have to figure out. It's a good point. Yeah, so for sure a question, and to your point, maybe not as literal as, is anybody there? Maybe we can have nobody respond, right? Like what we're writing. And further down, maybe it's something they're looking at, maybe it's something they are, maybe it's even here, right? Maybe it's even in this section, right, with the death mask. Because if you guys remember, this couple's actually dead. They just don't know it, right? So, um, maybe when she's talking about the death mask and saying, it's creepy because, how much it looks like you. And then David looks at the mask before setting it back down and realizes the eerie resemblance, but doesn't agree with Sarah. Like, he recognizes it, but he's too scared to agree with Sarah. Um, um, maybe this is where Haran comes in. You know, maybe it is David's death mask. Maybe his family. Because I had toyed with the idea of in this film, right at some point, Sarah starts choking. She chokes up some gold coins. Uh, you know, in in the Greek story, right? Like people would bury their dead with gold coins in the mouth, and that's how you would pay Haran, the ferryman. You have your coins, you get to, pay your toll for him to take you from, you know, the living world to the afterlife. You don't have your coins, you are left to wander the riverbanks for 100 years. So maybe that is the token. So maybe they find something, maybe it's the death mask. Um, maybe after the death mask part, and this is me just spitballing ideas, right? So maybe the death mask part goes just like this, like we have written. And then the next section of dialogue, like Sarah's walking. This is when she starts coughing, she starts choking. And this is where she's, she ends up spitting up the coins. So the conflict is essentially going to be more or less this couple, they're lost. They have no clue where they are, right? So they are trying to figure out um essentially where they are, right? Because if you go back and you read um the beginning of the script, right? So they are caught out in this storm. They're lost. They don't know how they got in this storm, right? They just know that they're trying to get out of it. So they're running through the rain and they end up underneath this awning. The city is dark. and they are trying to just get out of the rain. Sarah's getting cold. She doesn't feel real well, right? And when they're under this awning, when they're under this awning, they're looking around trying to figure out where they are. The male character, his name is David. He pulls the phone out of his pocket because he's trying to like get directions, or he's trying to call somebody, right? To get a cab, or to get them, where they need to go. They just want to go home because Sarah's talking about, I just want to go home. And so he's trying to, he's her protector. Right? He's trying to figure out how to get her home. So he's looking around, and he looks and he sees a glimmer of light at the end of the street. And that is the antique shop. So uh, they decide, okay, well, there's lights on in this business. There's got to be somebody there. So they run through the rain and they go to this antique shop, and they get there and the door's locked. So they're like, oh crap, like there's nowhere else around us that's open. So David, in this moment, basically loses his cool, looks around, grabs a rock, smashes the window, unlocks the door to go in. He's like, I've got to get Sarah out of here. She's freezing. She's wet. She just wants to go home, right? I'm the protector. That's where his mindset is. So they go in this antique shop, right? He's like, if nothing else, I can use the phone in here. So, so through this, right? He's trying to figure out where they are because they don't know what part of town they're in. They don't know how they got there. And they're just trying to figure out how to get home. Now, what they don't realize through this story, is that they're dead, right? So they're dead. And Haran in Greek mythology is, like I said, the ferryman of the dead. He essentially, like I said, he ferries people over the river Styx. Like when you die, you hop on his ferry, you pay him the toll, which is gold coins, and he takes you to the afterlife. If you don't have the toll, which are the gold coins, then you have to stay on the riverbank and wander the riverbank for 100 years, right? So that's like the Greek mythology. Now, the whole point, really, of this story is it's part of an anthology, right? So an anthology like Creep Show, Tales from the Crypt, Body Bags, Cabinet of Curiosities with Guillermo del Toro on Netflix. So you have a presenting story, and that story introduces other stories, so to speak. So this story here is meant to be sort of short and straight to the point, and it's going to introduce 2 to 3 other short films within it, right? So the plan is, as this couple is in this antique shop is full of things that are artifacts from the other stories that are going to be introduced, right? So there's going to be stories in each story. People are going to die in one way or another. And because this is all a horror script, right? So they'll find that artifact in here. Let's just say somebody dies via, let's just say, I don't know, let's say samurai sword, right? So they find a samurai sword, and maybe they pick it up, or maybe it's the clock that was stuck on 6 p.m. that David was looking at. And he picks up the clock. One of the stories can be about a clock, and it could be that particular clock, right? And that's a callback to that story. So as David picks up that clock, Haran introduces these other stories, right? He'll tell them about the story of the clock, or the story of the samurai sword. And throughout this film here, right? Like I said, we'll introduce 3 other stories. We'll cut to those stories, and then we'll cut back to this one. Now, after those other stories are told, this is when Haran will reveal himself as, hey, like, the couple will find out they're dead, and hey, I'm basically here. I'm going to ferry you to the afterlife. Like, it's time to pay your toll. And Sarah will have her toll, or at least that's how I'm thinking this is going to go. Sarah will have her toll, and David will be left to wander the riverbanks for 100 years because he doesn't have his gold coins. So really, it is not really supposed to be, granted, it needs to be a good story, right? But it doesn't need to be terribly too long and in depth where it doesn't allow time for the other stories to be introduced and told. So the other stories need to be like a max of 15 minutes. So if I'm looking at 3 stories that are 15 minutes apiece, there's 45 minutes. If this story here, all said and done is 15 to 20 minutes, you're looking at like right over an hour of runtime, and that's essentially the time frame I'm looking for. Because if you look at older anthologies or even some newer ones, right? They're about an hour, and the stories are shorts within the main story. So uh, that is essentially right what the whole point of the script is. So just to catch you up to speed, and um, so trying to play a little bit on that Greek mythology, right, of Haran, the ferryman of the dead, and sort of that is why it's raining and why the streets are flooding. Like a lot of this in here, you can read, and we talk about like, um, the streets flooding, the city's dark, um, and some of this is going to be changed as we go through on a second draft. But once they get in here into the antique store, right? So the antique store is filled with, like I said, with artifacts from the dead, essentially. So when you look at this image here, this is just a rendering of the main character, Sarah. And you can kind of see how this antique shop is just dank, dirty, dark. You know, looks like it has a lot of century-old stuff in there. And, all of these are artifacts from somebody's life at some point. Maybe not necessarily things that killed them. Maybe they're things that certain people held dear. But, there's also a section in here in the story where Sarah, let me see if I can find it. Before they get into the antique shop, she reveals this neck pain, and she reveals these scratches on her neck. They don't know where they came from, because she's taking a moment when she gets out of the rain. She's like, my neck is killing me. And David goes and looks, and she has these scratches around her neck. So the way that she finds out, or the way they bring things full circle, is, she has this necklace, and it's currently gone. She talks about that through dialogue. And she's going to find the necklace in the antique shop. Personal project. So yeah. So essentially what I do is I don't just write, I film and direct as well. So this is going to be something that I'm writing and something that I'm going to put in production myself. So it's not really something I'm going to sell. It's something that, essentially I'm gonna do, everything on. So, I'll get a crew together to help with certain positions and get some actors and stuff like that. But more or less, I'm most likely going to direct it, write it, and do all the camera work. It's what I've done in the past with other films. So I have 2 different ideas. One idea is I'm going to either myself write the other stories that this main story introduces, or I am going to find other writers or other filmmakers and have them write a story within this story's parameters, right? So I'll say, hey, write me a 10 to 15 minute long horror short, and I can either find a writer that wants to write something that wants it to be in this anthology, and I'll shoot it, or I can find another team that wants to write and shoot their own film, and then I'll just include it within this. So, really just trying to put the call out to see who I can get interested because I can write this film and the other ones. It's just gonna take a little bit longer, but it would be cool to get more people involved and find either other writers that are interested in writing a story or other teams that are interested in writing and shooting the story. So, I'm just trying to fill that out at the minute, right? Because either way, either way is fine with me. Now, the plan is to have all of this finished and have it ready for distribution, whether that's just on YouTube or whether that's on a streaming service, by the end of summer 2024. So, um, this, so hey, so yeah, so it is more or less sort of like Black Mirror in a way, right? So, um, how Mirror is a bunch of different stories, which Black Mirror is wonderful. Love Black Mirror. I haven't seen an episode so far that I haven't liked. Um, but yeah, so it's sort of like that, right? So I would say that if you watch um if you watch much horror, one that I can recommend is that I enjoy is John Carpenter's Body Bags. That's a good one. I think it's on Shutter. It may be on Prime. Probably on Tubi. It's most definitely on Tubi, so you could probably watch it free there. I actually read yesterday that John Carpenter has a new anthology coming out. It's called Suburban Screams. Um, but yeah, so basically just like that. And you know, if you're a video editor, if that's what you mean, then I mean, it's always good to know video editors. So definitely nice to meet you. I'm glad you're here checking this stuff out. And, I hope you come back or at least check in ever so often as this thing continues to ramp up because the plan is when we put this in principal principal photography and we start shooting it, I'm going to do my due diligence with BTS, right? And, live streaming on set when I'm able to and just doing the whole thing, showing people that want to know how to find financing or, how to, uh, how I find actors and how I find crew and stuff like that. So all that will be, here on the channel. So this is really just a from A to Z of this production. So literally every step of the way, and we're like at A, right now. So which is, well, maybe B, right? Like A is just the outlining. We did that on the first live streaming, and all of these are on the channel, so you could always just go back and watch the other ones and see how things are evolving and changing. Um, but we do this writing live stream every Friday, so um, so anytime that you want to pop in, we'll be happy to have you. And love the engagement, love your thoughts behind things because that's what I need. I need somebody questioning me of why I'm doing the things I'm doing or why I'm writing. Oh, that's awesome. Currently working for a short form guy. It is a short film. Is your short film out anywhere? Oh, nice. Is it on YouTube? So I know there's no way in heck you guys can ever see this, but there's this little spider that lives on this shelf above my desk, and every once in a while he takes this his web and he goes down and like touches my keyboard and comes back up. It's like the smallest little spider. I just let him live right here on this shelf. He always just like comes down and dangles and then goes right back up. Well, if you feel or you want to, you can drop it in the comments, the link to it, and we'll definitely check it out. And anybody watching this on replay can check it out. Uh, if you want to put it down in the comments for sure, I'll definitely look at it. You know, I love looking at anything really. I'm a cinephile through and through. Love all movies. I mean, horror is my genre, but I'll watch anything that is good and has a good story. And I just love seeing like indie stuff anyways. To be honest with you, I'm more interested in that than I am anything big budget. I can relate to it more, and a lot of times it's more creative, you know? I was just talking on the last live stream about how I would rather watch 2 indie horror B movies than watch like a, $100 million Marvel movie. I would, you know, Hey Corey, what do you edit with? Do you use Premiere? What are you editing with currently? Just out of curiosity, like what's your editor of choice? Premiere, nice. So I'm a DaVinci Resolve person myself, but I have Premiere as well. Spent many years in Premiere. Um, so I'm a Black Magic person, and obviously, Black Magic, DaVinci Resolve is their thing. So love DaVinci Resolve because when it comes to editing, I like less the cutting of the footage together and more of, like color grading, color correcting. So to me, in Premiere, you have Lumetri panel, and then or Lumetri color, and then in DaVinci Resolve, you have just like a ridiculous suite of tools. So for color grading, now they're both great softwares. Like I said, I used to use nothing but Premiere, and I do love like the ease of use through all of Adobe products, how you can just seamlessly move from like something from Premiere to After Effects. It's basically drag and drop. I love that stuff. But the only thing I don't like about Adobe, and this is what Adobe needs to do, right? Premiere needs to get on their game and release like interfaces like this, like the DaVinci Resolve Speed Editor. They need to release some stuff like this for Premiere. Um, and if Premiere had some stuff like that to just sort of speed up your editing. I mean, you can get like a what are those things called? Like a Turo box, I think it is. Never tried one of those, but uh Premiere needs some hardware like that. And I'm really surprised they haven't come out with anything. Um Now, yeah, it's really awesome. The speed editor is really cool. If you like to edit, something like that is 100% up your alley. Um, like I said, they have like a Turo box, I think, that you can set hotkeys to, and it's like a little pad. I don't know if you've seen it, and you can kind of just click it, and it'll like make your cuts and your trims and like your in and out points and stuff. So that might be worth looking into. I've never used one, but I hear they're pretty cool. Um, but yeah, like the freaking speed editor, that is a life changer, especially if you edit all day long as a job or like even like freelance. It's a no brainer. Um, and then they make all those like 10, 15, $20,000 like colorist boards and all that stuff. If I was a dedicated editor, then I would definitely maybe try to get one of those. But my thing is cameras. By trade, I am a camera operator, cinematographer. Um, I just unfortunately have to really wear so many hats like people on indie. Um, use mouse or I use mouse. Um, you're talking about like the Apple trackpad or whatever the magic whatever that thing's called. I'm definitely a Mac user. Uh, but I use a mouse. FX3s are legit. I like FX3s. Um, solid camera, cinema camera in a small, affordable form factor. So love an FX3. Oh, so you use the trackpad? Yeah, I've heard people using those. I might need to try it out. Now I know people use those for uh just like daily tasks, right? So just really just using their PC, right? Um, so editing, I use that speed editor. And then I just use a mouse for like just essentially everyday tasks on the computer, but I should try the trackpad because it's essentially just like the ones that's on the MacBook Air, or not the MacBook Air, but like the MacBook Pros, right? And has all the same gestures, I would imagine. I would have to say anything Sony too. Sony is probably my second favorite camera company. So definitely Blackmagic. This is if we're just talking about video, right? Blackmagic, Sony, uh, and then of course, if I had to pick, if I had to pick, like if money was no option, it would be uh obviously like a Area Alexa, right? But when we're talking about like indie level, Blackmagic, Sony, then it would be Red, and then it would be um maybe anything by Canon. Um, but I love Sony to death. They make some of the best cameras. 6K Pro is solid. They just came out with a new camera. I don't know if you saw it. Blackmagic did the other day. They had a uh one of their conferences where they come out and Grant Petty, the owner, talks about a whole bunch of crap, and then he revealed a new 6K full frame L mount camera. So they have a new camera out, and it's only like $2,600. So it's solid, but it's a full frame, and then you use like L mount lenses for it. So you know, that's a must buy. The thing about Blackmagic is you get a lot. You get a lot for what you pay for. And that's with all their stuff. They're very about like indie productions from the top down, like everything they make, whether it's their software that comes free with their cameras, or having the basic version of their software, like the light version, for free. Um, just the amount of power they pack into their cameras, and they sell them for like 2 grand to, I don't know. You have the 12K, the Ursa 12K, and I think that's only like 6 grand. And that you could shoot a freaking Discovery Channel documentary with that. You know. So that's why I love Blackmagic, is they just seems like they really care about their pricing their stuff right and doing right by their customers. But the problem is they're quick to innovate in certain ways and slow to innovate in others. I wish they would stop making cameras that look like DSLRs and just give everybody wants them to just make a boxy camera like a Z Cam or like a Red Komodo, and it would just be so much better than having like the wide DSLR style cameras. So interesting enough, uh, since we're talking about Blackmagic, is this live stream is shot on the Blackmagic Pocket 4K. That's what this image is right here. Now, the live stream, that's what it's shot on. And it's shot on a 35 millimeter mica cinema lens, which is like a budget cinema lens. That's why, like, sometimes I'm probably floating in and out of focus, is because it's just manual focus to like this point right here. Yeah, so the Pocket 4K, love it. I bought it right when it came out, and it's still a workhorse. I had one small issue with it where it would do some crazy stuff with the screen, but I sent it in and got it repaired for like, it was like 125 bucks or something. I don't know. I have a video on my YouTube channel about it. But love the camera. I've shot a couple different things with it. Paid work, and shot a short film called The Butcher that's on my channel with it. A little horror short film. I'm not using OBS. I'm using software called Restream. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's basically like a browser-based streaming software. Uh, it's sort of like StreamYard, kind of the same deal. But instead of going with StreamYard, I figured I would go with Restream. Because when I looked them up, they sort of just had, I don't know, sort of just had some features that I liked better. Yeah, so this has a little bit of a LUT on it. I'll show you what it looks like. Let me reach over to the camera and I'll show you what it looks like without it. So that's without the LUT there. So it looks pretty washed out. It's just your standard image. And then with the LUT on, I'll turn it back on. And that's it right there. Just a basic LUT, just something light. Yeah, yeah, it'll give you a crazy flat image. So that's your Blackmagic RAW, your B RAW. A lot of fun to work with, very easy to work with, and with DaVinci Resolve, one of the cool things about it is, uh, if you're an iPad user, um, they moved DaVinci Resolve to be compatible with the iPad, so you have DaVinci Resolve, which is essentially the full program, right? The full software on the iPad. So, um, you can take your Blackmagic RAW clips, edit them down on your iPad, and it runs amazingly well. If you have like an M1 or like an M2 chip iPad, like I have just the M1, the 12.9 Pro, and I can bring DaVinci Resolve up on this, take my SSD out of my Blackmagic, plug it into the side, and I can be editing, Blackmagic RAW footage right on my iPad. And it's a very like small, compact setup, right? Like you could take this on any shoot and you could be not only shooting great looking images, but you could be editing there on set as well. And talking about using mouse and trackpad and all that, one of my favorite things to use is the Apple Pencil, you know? So, Apple Pencil for editing will change your life because you can get in there and make all those super small, like minute adjustments. Let's see how many words we've got so far. No, you're good. That is fine. You know, I usually end in these things about an hour and a half through anyways. Um, so I'm cool to talk about whatever people want to talk about, you know. Glad you popped in. Glad you're hanging out and glad you know, you're another camera person and it's cool to talk gear. You know, I always enjoy talking about gear and talking about cameras and, just filmmaking in general, you know. Uh where about in the UK are you at? I imagine it's like early in the morning there, right? Oh, sweet Wells. So yeah, so it's probably early, right? Like it's got to be what, like 5 a.m., 5:30. I think it's a 5 hour difference, right? Because it's 12. Well, it's midnight here. Yeah, so 5:20. Yeah, 5 hour difference. Sweet, you're up early on a Saturday morning. It's the way to do it. Well, cool. Cool. I appreciate you stopping in, Corey. I think I'm going to end this live stream. Like I said, we will be live streaming. We do it every Friday night to work on this script, right? Until until it gets done. Um, and I'm going to head over to your channel, Corey. Actually, let me check you out right now. I'm going to head over there. I'm just going to sub. That way we can stay in contact. Anyways. Whether you have anything up over there or not, I'm still gonna sub. That way, stay. Like I said, because like I said, I um, always like to hang out and talk about. Cool. Gave you a sub and killer frags. Oh, sweet. Okay, let me check that one out. All right, cool. Okay. I see you doing your thing over here. I'm gonna watch through. I'm gonna have to check out some of your videos. Okay, so frags is like fragrances. Okay, I see. Nice. Cool. Yeah, definitely check out your editing for sure. Cool. I subbed to you over there as well. Like I said, I do all kinds of weird things on my channel. Right now, I'm doing 100 videos in 100 days. So I'm literally uploading really 100 different videos in 100 days. Sometimes it's vlogs, sometimes it's live streams, sometimes it's shorts, sometimes it's whatever I feel like shooting that day, but generally just regular lifestyle vlogs. Randomly do gear reviews, but that's only if like I really like something or I really uh, feel like talking about it. Even though I know that's the road to riches on YouTube is camera review channels and camera review videos. I just refuse to be a channel like that because at that point to me, I might as well go work at B&H if I'm just going to be a camera salesman. I much prefer talking about uh, stuff like this, right? Like the intricacies of filmmaking and how to do it and showing me doing it and uploading short films and stuff like that, to me is a lot more fun. It really scratches that creative itch as opposed to just like, you know, brand deal after brand deal. Yeah, so yeah, the camera game on YouTube is hard because it's saturated and you have your big players, right? And the people that uh are sort of dominating, that industry. It would have been easy to get into 2005, 2015, 2016, but after that, it's like you're battling, you know, a handful of big name people and, it's like going up against McDonald's or Burger King at this point and being like a little mom and pop burger stand. But yeah, so I guess I'm gonna go ahead and head out. Corey, appreciate you coming in. Killa Frags. Anybody out there that wants to know about fragrances or anything in that aspect, definitely check this guy out. His channel looks rad. I'm going to check it out later today. But beyond that, this was the live stream, and I've got some thinking to do of how I'm going to introduce Haran in this script and how we're going to get this story this section of the story wrapped up in the next 2 pages. Um, Corey, I will see you back hopefully at some point. And anybody else watching, every Friday night we do these writing live streams where we're going to live stream here on YouTube, on Twitch, on Twitter, and now streaming on Kick. And so you can watch any one of those 4 places or watch the replay here on YouTube. So as always, guys, stay rad, just go shoot, and I will see you guys tomorrow. See ya.